not war. Yes, peace, forever, forever, forever. Decirle al pueblo de Estados Unidos, no a la guerra. No queremos una guerra en el Caribe ni en Sudamérica. No, not war. Yes, peace. No a la guerra loca. No crazy war, no. ¿Cómo se dice en inglés? Please, please, please. Yes, peace. Listen to me. Yes, peace. Peace forever. Peace forever. Peace forever. Esto se llama lenguaje tarzaneado.
Hold on, where'd Belle go? Come back. Hold on. There we go.
Peace forever. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Peace forever. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't. It's just so good. No, I can't. Okay, welcome, everyone. We really cannot express enough of our gratitude for your willingness to join us on this Friday evening in our live for our virtual report back and fundraiser. So thank you. My name is Belle. I use 0 pronouns. Please use my name. I am with All African People's Revolutionary Party, All African Women's Revolutionary Union, Venceremos Brigade, and Tampa Funa Bombs and Colonized People's Alliance. And Onye, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Onye. I use she, they pronouns, occupied Muskogee, Miccosukee, Seminole Territory. Also organized with the Venceremos Brigade, with the National Network on Cuba, and with the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and Hukamis.
Yay! Also, I'm on Seminole, Tocobaga, and Calusa lands, so-called Tampa, Florida. So again, thank you all so much for being here for our virtual live and report back and fundraiser. So tonight, very excited. Tonight, we are going to be talking about what we experienced and what we did when Onye and I went onto Mexico City on the 9th Continental Meeting in solidarity with Cuba this past October. And we're going to talk about why we went, why it was so important. Also, while fundraising for our brigade, Venceremos Brigade, it's an all African, Indigenous, and Palestinian brigade coming up this December. But let me take it back a little because I'm going kind of fast. When we went on the 9th Continental Meeting in solidarity with Cuba, again, this was the 9th, so this has been happening for quite some time. Basically, when we went, there were over 250 delegates from 23 countries all over Abya Yala, which is so-called Latin America, and the Caribbean. And they were all in support of the Cuban Revolution and against the genocidal U.S. blockade, as well as in support of Cuba, the Cuban Revolution, its people, and in solidarity with Palestine. There were a ton of folks, like I said, over 250 delegates. And we had the privilege of going, and we learned so much. We met so many connections. It was incredibly inspiring for me to be in that space, as I consider myself a baby organizer. It was really wonderful to be able to be in a space with so many like-minded humans all over Abya Yala, which is so-called, again, Latin America, and the Caribbean, who are in solidarity with the Cuban people and are aware of this genocidal blockade that the U.S. has had on the island for over 50, 60 years, actually. And of course, it was really important for me. I learned so much. It was very inspiring. Got to meet and talk and connect with comrades from Martinique, St. Lucia, Mexico, of course, Mexico, Venezuela, going deep. Speaking of Venezuela, we support Venezuela as well. And all of those comrades, they're also supportive of Venezuela, since Venezuela and Cuba are friends. They're obviously connected through so many ways, and sovereign. So it was really important, and it is important for us to, as social justice loving people, it's our responsibility to support the Cuban people, um, and be in solidarity and against the genocidal blockade against them, to suffocate their revolution. Is literally what it says in that memo, and we can put it in the um, chat if y'all want to see it literally. I mean, the gringos are like, right, they explicitly say it. They want to suffocate um, the people so that they overturn their own revolution. So we are now going in December back to Cuba, which is very exciting. But this time it's going to be an African Indigenous and Palestinian brigade, which we're going December 26th to January 7th. And we really need your support. It's incredibly important for us to connect the struggle and become internationalists, because the struggle is international. We have the same enemy, and we really need to be able to end this US imperialist horrible nation. I was going to say something else, but we're live. But we really need your support. It's very important. We really need funds. We fund the struggle, so please fund this brigade. It's really important for us to go and be in solidarity, so we can strategize. We can see the Cuban Revolution in our own for ourselves, and also, since we're all Africans, Palestinians, and indigenous people are oppressed globally, these folks are not oppressed in Cuba. And we really want to connect with them, and we want to build together and support the Cuban Revolution. We're going to be doing solidarity work, strategizing together, learning. We're going to be students there. And it's really important for us and everyone, as I mentioned earlier, social justice loving people, to support and fund this struggle and fund the revolution. So please give us money, please. We need it. Anything is helpful, and we'll put the links or the information in the chat, Cash App or Venmo. Just please make sure that you do not include Cuba at all in that tag. Just put travel fund, Florida Travel Fund. Or you can also give us material aid, which within the slides that we posted in our social media, in our AAPRP Florida post today, we have information as to what material aid specifically we need. There's medical items, there's office supplies, school supplies, there's specific car parts that we need, because due to the genocidal US blockade on Cuba, the Cuban comrades cannot receive those items. The blockade impedes them from reaching their maximum potential. So it literally impedes life-saving important tools that they need, such as medicine, supplies for their schools, such as car parts for transportation, fuel. Hence, very recently, if you haven't noticed, the U.S. actually took over a ship that was going from Venezuela to Cuba with fuel of petroleum. So yeah, we really need all the material aid possible, but stick to the slides, please. Like, all the items are listed there. And of course, if you have any questions, reach out, or we're going to have a little Q&A later on too. And Onya is going to go into more details about what we did in Mexico. But the two places, that you can donate material aid to, there's a donation bin in Gnarly Cuban. Shout out to them for allowing us to use this space without a charge. Gnarly Cuban is a very yummy Cuban restaurant, so they're hosting a donation bin for us there. The address is also in our post, but it's 2545 Coolidge Ave, Suite C in Orlando, from Friday to Sunday. And then if you're in so-called Tampa, then you can donate. You can bring your material aid at the Mutual Aid Center, or it's also called Waters Ave Church, 609 West Waters Ave. And that's pretty much, I would say, every day, but just if you can, it preferably would be Monday through Wednesday in the evening after 5:30. And I think that is all I have for now. I'm going to pass it to Comrade Onye to lead us into the presentation.
Thanks, Belle. What a wonderful intro. Also wanted to say hi to the folks that are watching live. Hey, Knowledge for Living. Maybe that's Amina. Good to see you, comrade. Hey, King Bert. Hey, Chris. Hey, Christina, Michelle. Appreciate you all very much for joining our live. We had wanted to do this program in person. Our comrades at Gnarly Cuba were going to host us, but then like out of nowhere, it's going to be 40 degrees. 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So we were like, we could not make people come outside and listen to us for an hour, and 40-degree weather. And so we pivoted to something virtual. But as Belle said, you can still participate in person by dropping off your donations at Gnarly Cuban if you're in Orlando, or at the Mutual Aid Center in Tampa. And you still get to hear all about our U.S. contingent, our North American contingent to Mexico City, because you're with us on live. So my name is Onye. I use she, they, like I said in the beginning. I am an organizer with the Vencemos Brigade. I have been since 2019. I'm also an organizer with the National Network on Cuba, which is a national coalition of organizations fighting U.S. policy attempting to destroy the Cuban Revolution, acting in solidarity with the passive people in Cuba who are like the keepers of that revolution. And so like the U.S. contingent to Mexico City was organized by the National Network on Cuba. Like Belle said, what was happening in Mexico City was the 9th Continental Meeting in solidarity with Cuba. It was organized by the Mexico-Cuba Solidarity Movement, which is primarily led by like social justice organizations, and also the Communist Party of Mexico, who we got to interact with a lot, who's really dope. And so they organized like this regional gathering. It was over 556 delegates from 35 different countries. I know, it was wild. So many people. And they were mostly from, of course, Turtle Island, from Latin America and the Caribbean. We met folks from Puerto Rico, so many folks, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Argentina, Chile. It was incredible. It was so inspiring. Of course, we were part of the North American bloc. So we were the US and Canada. And initially, the 9th Continental Meeting was only going to be for nations in the Western Hemisphere, minus North America, which good for them. Like they have the right to organize themselves. Like I feel like every international space is dominated by the US and other Western countries. They're always like throwing their weight around. They're all trying to set everybody's agenda. And so it's really important for global South nations that are being oppressed by the United States and by Western countries, to have their own spaces, and so much respect. But our comrades at ECOP saw an opportunity, because Mexico and the U.S. share a border, for the U.S. and Canada to be invited to participate. And the reason why they wanted to make that happen is because the U.S. government likes to arbitrarily deny visas to our Cuban comrades, even though they have done nothing wrong, even though they have comrades and loved ones, family members in the United States, even though they've gone back and forth before. All of a sudden, the U.S. is like, now we have decided that you can't come anymore, so we're not going to give you a visa. And so there are a number of Cuban comrades who we would love to work with and interact with, who are not allowed to come into the US and talk to us. And to be honest with you, the reason why the US does that is because they know like the more interaction we have with revolutionary Cubans and revolutionary Cuban society, the more we know that the US government is lying about Cuba, and the more we'll fight for Cuba. And so that's part of the reason why they keep the Cubans out. So in any case, our Cuban comrades cannot get visas to enter the United States. Mexico is close to the US. And so they were like, what if we got people to come from North America for one day to participate in this regional gathering, to help them understand the necessity of organizing across borders, but also to take the opportunity to meet in person with our Cuban comrades and share about the Cuba solidarity work that has been happening across North America, and also find ways to collaborate with each other across borders. And so that is how we got involved, like the graciousness of our Cuban comrades at the Cuban Institute for Friendship with the Peoples, as well as like the graciousness of the Mexico-Cuba solidarity movement, who allowed us to share space with them. So the conference itself was October 9th to October 12th, and it was heavily focused on organizing a hemisphere-wide movement in solidarity with Cuba. And so representatives from all kinds of progressive organizations, socialist parties, youth movements, environmental justice organizations, indigenous people's organizations, African people's organizations, all coming together to denounce US imperialist attacks, not just on Cuba. Like that was like one overarching theme. Like Cuba was the center, but everybody understood like what the US was doing to Cuba was happening to all of us. Like, Cuba is blockaded, other countries are sanctioned. Right now, as we speak, the US is straight up murdering fishermen in the Caribbean Ocean, charged with no crime, just out there minding their business trying to catch fish, getting drone bombed by the US military. They've killed people from Trinidad, Colombia, and Venezuela now. And so the rest of the region very clearly understands that an attack on Cuba must be understood as an attack on all of us, because what happens to Cuba, they're going to bring to us eventually. Just like what happens to Palestine, what happens to Puerto Rico, what happens to African and indigenous people in the United States is going to be visited upon all of us eventually. And so we have to figure out how to organize across borders, how to be in solidarity with each other across borders. And that was very much what the meeting was about. And it was especially a privilege to be invited as people living in the belly of the beast, living in the United States, because the US left, like progressive forces in the US do have a tendency to like think in silos, to think of like the dichotomy of like so-called domestic issues and like foreign affairs or like international issues. And that's like it's a false binary, y'all. Like, the people giving us hell, the people like cutting off our food stamps, the people raising our rent, the people like getting rid of all even remotely accessible housing, the people defunding our schools, the people over policing our communities. It's like literally the same people blockading Cuba, bombing fishermen, threatening to invade Venezuela, stealing oil that someone else paid for. It's literally the same people. So like it's really important for those of us in the belly of the beast to start to organize across borders. So like ignore like the colonial lines created by pilgrims and instead figure out how we can find connections between struggles across nations. So that was one part of the conference, just like denouncing with one voice US attacks on the Cuban Revolution as attacks on all of us. And then the other part of the conference was putting together an action plan, like a 3-year plan. We love centralized long-term planning, or even I guess it's like short-term because it's 3 years, but it's more than the kind of planning that a lot of people do, especially like progressive people do. Like, we don't be planning long-term. We just go like action to action. But no, they were like, we are going to plan our work as a hemispheric Cuba solidarity movement from 2025 to 2028. We are going to define our priorities. We are going to define like shared days for collective action. We're going to define new structures that we want to build to pursue new tactics. Like, one of the things that they were talking about forming was like a coalition or like a network of like human rights lawyers and human rights organizations who could come together and develop a strategy to contest the dominance of like the US and other powerful nations in places like the United Nations. So they were literally just like strategizing, scheming about how we could work together to make advances in the struggle against the blockade and the struggle against US attacks on the Cuban Revolution. So I have like some pictures and I wonder how this is gonna work on Instagram. Let's find out together. Is this really small? Oh my God, it's tiny. Let's see what we can do. Thank you. Oh wait, it's a little better. Is that viewable? Let's see. Can y'all see it? I guess they can't see it. Never mind then. Oh wait, no, is it working? Okay, cool. If there's just a little delay. Okay, we're using Restream. I don't know if anyone like knew me during COVID times. I was always on the YouTube representing the APRP, and we would use Restream to stream to multiple platforms. So we're running it back, and so that's how we have like the name tags for me and Belle. That's how we got the slides up. That's how we played the Maduro video. So we're just trying things out. You can't put me on these platforms and not expect me to mess around. So these are some slides. I know it's probably going to be small on your phone, but hopefully you can see the pictures. One thing that we learned at the meeting and with our time in Mexico City is like the roots of the solidarity between Cuba and Mexico are very, very, very deep. Like, I never knew, for example, that there was a place in Mexico called Tuxpan where Fidel and Che and Raul, when they were organizing their plan to kick off the Cuban Revolution, they sailed from Tuxpan, Mexico, back to Cuba in the Granma to kick off the armed phase of the Cuban Revolution. The other thing we learned is that Mexico is the only nation since it's won its independence to never break ties with Cuba. They have been locked in and steadfast through different administrations, through different political lines of power, like Cuba or Mexico solidarity with Cuba has never wavered. And in the present day, they have a progressive president, Claudia Sheinbaum, who I believe is like the elected president with like the highest approval rating on the planet, who is a member of the Morena party, which is like a progressive party in Mexico. And it has also been locked in for Cuba. Like the US, Trump, the unhinged Trump administration is like escalating attacks on Mexico for its increasingly anti-imperialist stances, and also because Claudia Sheinbaum is like, we need to develop a relationship with the US that's like more independent. Like we can't be dependent on these people; they're out of their minds. And so the Trump has been escalating attacks, and she just like keeps locking in, like keep doubling down, like keep refusing to abandon Cuba and to abandon other anti-imperialist movements. And the response, of course, is the US threatening to get her out of there, and she doesn't care. She doesn't care. So like it was really cool to see how deep the relationship between Mexico and Cuba was, and also to see how like the party in power was like concrete in its support for Cuba. And so like the meeting wasn't state sponsored, but there were so many different Mexican organizations present that really showed how deep the relationship was, how tight it was. And then the other thing about Mexico City in general, it was my first time there, and there's like a lot of revolutionary history there. Like it's built upon the ruins of, what's it called? Tenochtitlan, like an ancient indigenous city. But it also has like deep roots in like the socialist movement. Like one of the side quests that we did was a trip to Leon Trotsky's house. He's got like a compound in Mexico City, and it was really interesting. It's like really well maintained. You can like take a tour around it, see how he lived. You can also see the part where he got assassinated. Yeah, it was very interesting. Anyway, I'm rambling. Mexico City, Cuba, deep roots. This is like a very, very small picture of the US contingent. Can I make this take the full screen? No, I can't. But so this is probably hard to see picture, but this is the folks from the United States, the folks from Canada behind a banner that says "Long Live International Solidarity." The US contingent was organized by the National Network on Cuba, and it had representatives from over a dozen organizations, including the Vencedemos Brigade, which me and Belle were repping, but also our political home, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and the All African Women's Revolutionary Union had several folks. We had folks from the Hatue Project, which is like a material aid campaign organized by the Party for Socialism and Liberation that sends aid to Cuba, like syringes and medical supplies, etc. They were there. We had the Hands Off Cuba Committee, 2 representatives from there. Building relations with Cuban labor, many different global exchange, many different forces with many different political lines all coming together in our contingent. It was really wonderful. There has been like, within the past couple of years, like a lot of like line struggle within the National Network on Cuba as we try to understand our analysis of what's going on in the world and how it's connected to the US blockade on Cuba. Like we know, for example, Israel's escalation of genocide in occupied Palestine that's been unfolding for the past 2 years since the victorious Al-Aqsa flood. They've been giving Palestinians hell for fighting back, and like every single social justice movement in the world has had to respond, has had to say, this is wrong, because it's literally a straight up genocide, killing babies, killing elders, killing disabled people wantonly for wanting to be free by Israel. And it's being streamed across all kinds of social media platforms. And it's like a moment where you cannot be quiet. You can't stay silent because what they do to Palestine, they will do to us if allowed to do so. So within the National Network on Cuba, like folks are answering that call. Folks are making the connections between what is happening to Palestine, what is happening to Cuba, and like who is doing it. And there's some aspects of the movement, it's a big tent. So there's like some aspects of the movement that are firmly internationalists that understand the connection. And there are some sectors that are like, no, only Cuba. And like, there's like a struggle between those two positions. But even as there's like a struggle between those two positions, the National Network on Cuba has to maintain its unity. And that's been a very difficult thing to navigate against this backdrop of a genocide. And so I feel like we're having a necessary struggle to push us into a more like the correct internationalist position, understanding that the blockade on Cuba is not happening in isolation. It's part of a global enemy of imperialism. Like it's the same people doing the same stuff to all of us, and at the same time keeping Cuba at the center and maintaining the unity of the coalition across difference. So say all that to say that this contingent represented like all the perspectives, and we still had to come together and figure out how to work together and struggle collectively to report back to our Cuban comrades about what our work has looked like and what we want to do together. And so it was just like an opportunity to, build unity and build relationship, even across ideological difference, which to me is like one of the most important things that we have to do as like an anti-imperialist movement, as a social justice movement. And then the other thing, so it's US, National Network on Cuba, and then we had Canadians from the Canadian Network on Cuba who joined our contingent, who we were able to interact with and plan with as well. And maybe you're not excited about Canadians, but I found it very exciting, because why are we paying attention to the borders drawn by colonizers, by settlers? Like, why should the line, the barrier for who we build with, be a border made up by a slave master? That actually makes no sense. It actually makes no sense. We should ignore that, and we should build struggles across borders, and certainly within North America. If we see the entire rest of Turtle Island organizing continental meeting, organizing regional formations to figure out how to work together, what excuse do we have in North America, in our deteriorating conditions, to try to work in silos, to try to work in isolation? And so we got to be side by side with the Canadians and make plans together and give a shared report, like a North American report to ECAB, like not each individual organization in the network, like getting on the mic and talking about themselves, but all of us giving a shared plan and a shared report. It was really wonderful. So that's that picture. That made me spiral into memories. This picture is us on the stage at the 9th Continental Meeting, specifically the Venceremos Brigade contingent and the APRP contingent. It's probably obvious, like the APRP and the VB are like we're all like intertwined. There's a lot of overlap, is what I'm saying. But we maintain our distinct identities. The thing about the APRP is when we are working in coalition, we are not going to try to dominate. We're going to find like a basis of unity and like work together, like bring our contribution and like respect what is. And so that's what I really, really like about the relationship, because like the VB has its own like really queer, really youth-centered, really anti-oppressive culture. And then the APRP has like its Pan-African militant culture, and it mixes well. So that's us on stage at the 9th Continental Meeting. And then this is just like some assorted shots of the meeting. Oh yeah, there was like a really good video of 100, next year is the 100th birthday of Fidel Castro. And you already know, Cuba's going up, the VB is going up. By the way, if you missed the cutoff for the African Indigenous Palestinian Brigade in December, your next opportunity to come to Cuba with us is gonna be next summer, August 2026, the first 2 weeks of August. We are going to take 150 people for the 100th birthday of Fidel in Cuba. Please come with us. It's open to everybody, including your babies, including your children, so come through. But this whole next year is going to be dedicated to that revolutionary. And I am not afraid to say that the world is a better place because Fidel Castro existed in it, and because the Cuban Revolution lives, and he helped lead it and get it, and helped alongside the massive Cuban people to get it to where it is. And so very excited for the next 12 months where we get to like honor his legacy and like uplift the lessons that he left for us, because there's so many. So there was that. And I think this might be, and then these are our Cuban friends, some of our Cuban friends. And so like one of the last days of our contingent, after we had organized ourselves collectively, made like a shared report, did like some shared planning across borders, and then we came together and gave a presentation to the Cubans where we talked about all the work we had done for the previous year and all the work we were planning to do together. And they were very impressed, because let me tell you, the Cubans are very patient with people from the United States. It's a hot mess sometimes. It's a hot mess, but they really are so patient. And I'm really proud that we got to show them like such unity and organization as a North American contingent. We like intentionally moved in a very, very different way than has existed within the network in the past. So I think that's the last picture. And this is going to be like text, but this is just talking about the Continental Meeting. But what I wanted to get to, this is the overview of what we did. So October 9th to 10th is when the meeting happened. For the majority of the North American contingent, we were only present on the last day. I think it was like, how many people was it, Belle? Do you remember? It was like 60, 40? I don't know. 40.
Yeah, it was like 40 folks, yeah.
Cool. So it was like 40 people. And like I said, the Continental Meeting initially was only for everybody in the Western Hemisphere except North America. And so they didn't want us to be like a huge chunk of people in the space that was not meant for us. And so we were invited to the last day. For the first 3 days, the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th, only like a smaller number of folks from the US or North America were there. So it was the co-chairs of the National Network on Cuba. There's 5 of us. I'm one. There's also Comrade Shaquille. Shout out Shaquille from the Low Country Action Committee. We love her. Comrade Cheryl Labash, long time Cuba Solidarity organizer. Actually got an award from the Cubans for going so hard for Cuba. I love Cheryl. Also has been on the Venceremos Brigade. I met Cheryl on the Venceremos Brigade. Our comrade Leo, who coordinates political education work for the National Network on Cuba, because you are not gonna be able to engage in organization without political education, let me tell you, and Cuba Solidarity work is no exception. Like, you really will just do random stuff if you don't have PE. So shout out Leo. And then our comrade Cesar with Cuba C, New York, New Jersey, who is the other co-chair of the National Network on Cuba. And there's 2 more, Tim and Michael, but they were not present. So that for the first 3 days of the conference, it was only the co-chairs, Leo and the Canadians, and we were just like in there intermixing with the people, having like speaking to like different folks from different countries, obtaining as many contacts as we could, because we are serious about building across borders. We have to figure out how to develop Cuba solidarity campaigns, and also crucially, Cuba solidarity material aid projects, getting aid to Cuba that function across borders, especially because we know that the attacks on our capacity to travel to Cuba, to travel to Venezuela, to move across the hemisphere are escalating. Like they have like now cut off visa processing for Cubans. They are now reinvestigating green card holders. Like, I think they like straight up banned new green cards to like Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, a bunch of places, and they're investigating the existing ones. They are cutting off flights to different places, parts of the island. They're basically just like, you can tell that travel within our region is going to get a lot more complicated, and moving people being difficult also means moving goods is going to be difficult. And so we have to figure out ways where material aid can still get to Cuba, even if the US tries to act as a choke point. And so we were very, very much interested in getting organizational contacts that we could develop in order to like still be able to do the work that we need to do. The other thing that we were really, really focused on is understanding like what the priorities of the rest of the region were in terms of Cuba solidarity work. Like, what are the things that everybody else are focused on that we can like plug into or help build upon. And so one of the big subjects was the necessity of developing material aid projects that weren't just about like rapid response, like sending syringes or like powdered milk or like money, but actually about material aid that could help Cuba develop its own capacity to meet its own needs. So instead of us sending syringes, Cuba can make its own syringes, for example. And so that was like one of the big conversations throughout the conference, is like, what does that look like to focus material aid efforts on building Cuba's own capacity to meet its needs? The other piece when it came to economic ties was they were like, how can we figure out how to work together without the United States? Because another thing that has become extremely clear in the past couple of years, not just since the escalated genocide in Palestine, but also since them attempting to like install a Nazi state next to Russia. It's a long story, but basically people realize that the US will like straight up, if you have your money in a US bank, the US will like straight up steal it and be like, what are you going to do? If you buy oil, let's say you're Cuba and you buy oil from Venezuela, the US will like just take the boat. Just take the boat. If you want to get a loan as Cuba from a bank in Switzerland, the bank in Switzerland will be like, I can't do that because I don't want the US to get mad at me. So there's like all these ways where even when nations just try to deal with each other, the US just like inserts itself into the mix and makes it difficult or makes it impossible. And so they're like, how can we develop economic ties that can function independently of the United States? And so that was another big subject of conversation. And another last one, huge subject of, like not the last one they talked about, but the last one I cover because we have limited time. The last like really big subject of conversation was the media war, not just against Cuba, but the media war to spread like basically like war propaganda, white supremacist propaganda, and crucially like how it is infecting or how it's like radicalizing youth to the right. and how like progressive forces, anti-imperialist forces can stop that or counter it. So it was like the media war against Cuba and like fighting for the hearts and minds of the youth and engaging youth in anti-imperialist work. And folks are talking about the necessity of building like regional propaganda platforms that can counter the capitalist media that's spreading constant lies about Cuba. They were talking about how they can mobilize youth beyond traditional anti-imperialist or like leftist or socialist spaces. Like that's one thing I'll say about the meeting is there was like a lot of elder people, like probably like the VB and APRP contingent and also the Venezuelan contingent were like the youngest folks, and everybody else, like most of the other delegates were probably like 50 and up. And people were commenting on that. They were saying that like, you know, we need to like this generation is doing important work, but this generation cannot sustain the movement we need beyond this, like beyond like a particular time, beyond like their lifetime. And we need to have like a constant leadership coming in, like a constant development of new forces. And like the youth are key to that, but only the youth can organize the youth. God damn it. And so what do we do? How do we get them involved? So that was like a lot of conversations. And the Venezuelans had very good ideas about that. So that's the program. And then, so that's the meeting, the continental meeting. Then we had the last day where the whole North American contingent came. Then on the 13th, we had like a side quest day, but also we started off that day organizing ourselves as the North American contingent, like planning to give our report as a collective. And like one of our objectives, again, was to make sure that everybody was not trying to be like king of the mountain, but that we were presenting like a united front. Like one voice representing all of North America and giving shared priorities, not our individual concerns. And so that was what that meeting on the 13th was all about. And then afterwards, I don't know what you did, Belle, but a group of us, I think you were there. Were you there at Trotsky's house?
Yeah, I was there.
Yes. So we
was
went to
lit in that house.
I know. We were cutting up. Like we were cracking jokes. And everybody was there. It was very serious. But I struggle to take Trotsky seriously. I struggle.
Same.
Okay. So it was interesting. We tried to get into Frida's house, but Frida's house had a line. We missed the cutoff, but Trotsky's house had no line. And I think that's
Trotsky's house was like was crickets. It was the majority Europeans in there. I mean, I wonder why.
It was the whitest people I saw in Mexico City. Okay. So it was also sorry, what?
I said straight up.
It was also huge. I was like, you're in exile? And this is big. This is nice. Like, what do you mean? Anyway, so we went to Trotsky's house. We cut up. It was really funny. And then we just like wandered the streets of Mexico. But first, we organized ourselves as the North American contingent. And the last day, we had our meeting with our comrades at the Cuban Institute for Friendship with the Peoples. And I just want to like quickly talk about how we approached organizing ourselves as a U.S. contingent. Because like I said, it was like a very intentional attempt to build unity within the North American Cuba Solidarity movement after a period, really like a continuing period of division, to say we need to maintain relationship across disagreement and we need to show up as a collective because this is what's being asked of us. Like the Cubans are like, figure out how to work together. For the love of God, work together. And the US is like, no. And so we were like, we're going to say yes this time and we're going to try it out. So one of the key ways that we showed up as a collective, as the North American contingent, as the US delegation, is like we adopted a student mindset, because that's another thing about when people from imperialist nations go to like global South spaces, is we're always trying to tell people what to do, man. Like we're always trying to tell them like the right way to fight, or what they're doing wrong, or like the errors in their socialism, or the errors in their anti-imperialism. And we don't really, like, at least they're on the board. You know what I'm saying? Like Cuba had like a whole revolution. Cuba overthrew a US-backed dictatorship, militarily defeated the Spanish and the US. You know what I'm saying? Like they've done, and they're building a revolutionary socialist project under constant attack. We haven't done that, but we be getting up in their spaces talking about this is what you need to do this, and I can't believe you do that. But it's no. So we were like, we're very intentionally not going to show up like this. We are going to show up looking to learn, looking to collaborate, looking to ask questions, and also grounding our discussion, our analysis in reality, in what is actually happening, not the world as we think it should be, not the world according to our own bias questions perspective, but the world as it is. The other thing that we did to be really intentional was like organize ourselves as a contingent. Like we had folks volunteering to take notes for everybody. So we have very thorough notes. We had folks volunteering to take media, and we had folks volunteering to like gather the group. There was like one point where we had like a really long day and we had people buying food for everybody. It was just really good. It was very collective, very cute, very intentional. And one of the ways that we organized that we built that container, this is definitely going to be unreadable, but what's on the screen is our very long but wonderful list of community agreements. So community agreements are a practice that we have within the Venceremos Brigade. For every brigade, every meeting space we have, every team, we got these community agreements. What they essentially are is like a collective agreement for how we're going to show up in a space and engage each other to build like an accessible, equitable, powerful space where it's truly collective, where everybody's able to show up as like their true self and make their contribution in their own way. And so this practice, to my knowledge, is like new in the NNOC because it's like a lot of different organizations with a lot of different political lines coming together. And usually it's just like, you know, everybody giving their own perspective. And we were like, let's develop like this shared practice for how we show up. And people did it. People did it. Like really, people really made like a good faith effort to show up as comrades, to practice these agreements. Like some of them are like active listening, no quick fix, equitable labor, move up, move back. What move up, move back means is like if you're a person who talks a lot, like me, you like step back and let other people share. And if you're a person who like is more quiet and shares spaces, then you like intentionally take up space. Another one is depth without drowning, which I have to practice as well, where it basically means like you share enough context for people to get the point, and that's it. That's it. like just share what needs to be shared, enough context for people to understand, but like don't like drown in a lake of context or things that you want to share. And so yeah, we practice these together in order to build an equitable space, a powerful space, a collective space, and it really worked. And so shout out to community agreements as like a way of practicing building revolutionary culture, because I really feel like it had like a very positive impact in our contingent. And then I think this is like almost the last slide. The last thing I want to share before we move to the closing or Q&A and then closing is that I had mentioned that this meeting was an opportunity for us to meet with Cuban comrades who have been arbitrarily barred from entering the United States. These are revolutionaries, these are heroes, these are Cuban leaders that are respected across the world that the US government has decided they are just going to mess with their visas, or not gonna let them in because they don't want people to hear what they have to say. And so one of those comrades is the dude on the slide. His name is Fernando Gonzalez Yort. He is the president of ECAP, the Cuban Institute for Friendship with the Peoples. And so ECAP is basically Cuba's institution for like making friends across borders. ECAP has like divisions for like every single part of the world, and they are responsible for building relationships with other nations. Like there's an ECAP Africa division, there's an ECAP Southeast Asia division, there's an ECAP Middle East division. So for every part of the world, there's a division of ECAP, and all they're about is making friends, making homies, building tight relationships, helping people come to Cuba, see it for themselves, helping Cuba organize solidarity for other places. Like that is what ECAP is about. It's friend making across the world, relationship building across the world. And their president is Fernando. Fernando is also a legend, like a straight up legend. I cannot impress this upon you enough. First of all, so Cuba has supported anti-colonial movements for justice all over the world for a long time. An example of that history is when Cuba sent hundreds of thousands of doctors and teachers and soldiers and aid to Angola when Angola was fighting against Portuguese colonialism, trying to get their land back. Cuba supported Angola, and Fernando was one of the Cubans that was sent to Angola, who fought side by side with Africans who were resisting imperialism, resisting colonization, could have died. Instead, he was like, I'm going to give my life for Africa to be free. He lived, he came back. Then the US has like a really long history of attempting to destroy the Cuban Revolution in various ways. One of the ways is like by straight up supporting terrorism in Cuba, like in the 2000s, not that long ago. In the 2000s, the US would give money to all kinds of right-wing mercenaries. Like they would find people in Miami or in some places in Central and South America. They would pay them to take bombs into Havana and blow up hotels and other civilian infrastructure. And that would happen often. They also backed right-wing groups that did things like carry out assassinations of Cuban diplomats, bombings of Cuban civilian aircraft, like straight up like regular planes full of people they have killed, like shot down and killed all the people in the plane. So these are the kind of things that the US will organize against Cuba and has for a long time. And so Cuba has an interest in stopping that. Cuba has its own intelligence program. And part of the work with that intelligence program was to send folks into the United States to attempt to learn learn information about the right-wing groups that were carrying out these attacks in order to stop the attacks. Fernando was part of one of those groups. And so he went to Havana and trying to find out like who the terrorists were that were being paid by the US to attack Cuba. He was discovered while in the US along with his comrades, and they were imprisoned in the US for a very, very long time for trying to, again, to stop US attacks on Cuba, US attacks on like Cuban people, regular civilians, like not even the communists, but regular ass people. And so he was a political prisoner in the United States for a long time. He was in a US prison for that. And he was in prison with like Leonard Peltier, who was like a famous indigenous activist, leader in the American Indian movement. He was also in prison in the same facility as Mumia Abu-Jamal, like an African political prisoner and journalist who was framed, who should not be in prison, was straight up framed. And so he built ties with these like heroes of our African and indigenous and Chicano national liberation struggles while locked up, was like part of like prisoners organizing for justice until he was successfully freed by the campaign to free the Cuban Five. And then when he was freed by that campaign, he started working with ECAP, became the president. So like I said, he is a legend. He's not allowed to enter the United States. And so we got to meet with him in Mexico and share back about the work we're doing in the United States and just get to build a relationship with him. So I want to shout out Fernando. So there's a lot more that I could say, but I want to wrap it up now because I know that I'm over time. And so what I will say is that overall, what the North American contingent to Mexico City did was build the unity and organization and also shared strategy, not just of the U.S. Cuba Solidarity Movement, but the whole North American Solidarity Movement. And it also helped us connect to the Cuba Solidarity Movement and the anti-imperialist movement across the entire region. And so these are ties that we are going to continue to build upon. Again, our anti-imperialist work must go across borders. Our social justice work must go across borders. And so one key next step in building upon the work we did in Mexico is the African, Indigenous, Palestinian contingent of the Venceremos Brigade. We are departing to Cuba December 26th, so like 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in Cuba with 40 brigadistas. We are sending several people from Florida, including Belle and myself, our comrade from the American. We got a strong contingent, man. We got a strong contingent. And we also know that international travel is expensive and is usually a privilege reserved for, you know, the upper class, the middle class. We want to bring the front lines of social justice movements, the front lines of anti-imperialist movements, and that's like poor and working class colonized people, African, Indigenous, Palestinian people. We do not have money. We are not a 501c3. We don't get grants. We don't have rich benefactors. So all the work, like to make this possible, we need the support of our community. We need to take care of each other and work collectively to make sure that people can get on these brigades. And so that is why we are hosting this report back and talking to you about our work and helping y'all understand why it is important. And we hope that you will help us out by supporting to donate, to send folks from Florida to Cuba. We still need a couple $100 more. So anything you give will help. If it's $5, if it's $10, if it's $50, God bless you, comrade. We appreciate you because every single little bit is going to get us closer to Cuba. So we got 2 more weeks to do this. We got the donation info on the screen, but I think it's a little small. So I'll also put it up on the caption. Let's see. So if you want to donate to us on Cash App, APRP Florida, or Venmo, same tag, APRP Florida. You can also support online at vbforcuba. Look at that. Look at that. That's why you can't get me on Restream. I'll just start putting random things on the stream. This is taking
It's not random. It's great.
Thank you. Okay, so please help get us to Cuba. We are taking donations. We got 2 more weeks to get to our goal. And if you don't have cash, it's okay. You can still help. Can I make this bigger? Can I do it? No, it didn't help. It didn't help. Let's see this. I just like moving the things around. Okay. So if you can't do cash, but you have material aid, if you have medical supplies like acetaminophen, ibuprofen, allergy medication, antihistamines, inhalers are really important. We have like a full list on our Instagram on the flyer for this live. If you swipe left, you'll see the list of all the things that are being asked for. If you have any of that stuff, medical supplies, office supplies, kitchen supplies, auto supplies, dried food products, please drop it off in person. If you are in Orlando, you can drop it off this Friday. I guess not anymore because it closed. So tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday from 9 to 2 p.m. at Gnarly Cuban, which is at 2545 Coolidge Avenue, Suite C. Shout out to Gnarly Cuban. Also, incredible cafecitos, incredible empanadas. So like, don't just drop off donations. If you want a snack, definitely get some food because it's banging. And if you're in Tampa, you can drop off donations at the Mutual Aid Center, aka the Waters Avenue Church at 609 West Waters Ave. And we will also post this much bigger on our Instagram. But that concludes my spiel. So I'm going to pass it back to Belle.
Thanks, Onye. That was great. That was lit. Shout out to you. Go tech. Go Onye. Go speaker. Okay. And all other things. Comrade, wonderful person. Overall, an amazing human comrade. Okay, amazing. Okay, now it's time for a Q&A though. And for the sake of time, we do have a Q&A. So, feel free to ask all your questions, concerns. Also, the memo. I don't know how to put the memo of the gringos of the U.S. saying straight up that they want to suffocate the Cuban people from resources from the block by enforcing the U.S. blockade, the genocidal blockade. I have the memo, like the actual. It's straight up from the U.S. website. Like if you do the research, it's right there. But we have the link for you. I just don't know how to do it on here. But oh no, you got it.
Either, but I'll put it in the chat. I feel like there is a way to put it up, but I can't do it under pressure.
That's okay. That's valid. That's valid. All right. So what questions do you have? What concerns do you have? We have roughly about 10 minutes for this, and then we're going to wrap it up. So if you have any questions, concerns, please put them in the chat now. I cannot see the chat. I can only see the YouTube stuff, but I can't see the live.
I can see the Instagram comments. There's also someone cutting up in the YouTube comments. I just want to say, Vito Fidel, you can be mad. You can cut up in the YouTube comments. You can say what you want about Fidel. History absolved him. You know what I'm saying? They tried to kill that man over 600 times. And he died peacefully surrounded by his loved ones. So you can cut up on the YouTube, but the Cuban Revolution will live on. I don't see any.
Period.
I don't see any questions, but I do see our comrade Michael. Hey, Michael. Hey, Darren.
Hey, comrades. Viva Fidel!
Viva! Hi, hey, Day.
All right.
Randy, Cash Money Rasta asking if we made ice pick jokes in Trotsky's house. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know if we did it. I don't remember making an ice pick joke, but I do know you could be in the room where he got. I was surprised. And it was an ice pick, and the caption was like someone came to kill him, and he fought them with his bare hands, and then someone heard the commotion, was like, "Do you need help?" And he was like, "I got this." It's not funny. I'm sorry. And then they came back, and he was dead. So he didn't have it. That's disrespectful. Let me stop. Okay, sorry. So, sorry, go ahead.
But it is true. That's what it said on the thing.
Just accept help. I feel like that's the lesson.
Yeah.
If you're finding a man who's come to kill you, and someone's like, "Do you help?" Just be like, "Yeah." India. Hi, India. We got some brigadiers in the chat. Thank you, comrades at the APRP DMV. Ooh, we have a question. So challenges getting through airport security. What are your thoughts and experiences? That's like a really good question. Do you want to try to answer, Bill?
What? Can you repeat the question? Because I can't see it. Sorry.
Yes. Challenges we experienced getting through airport security, and what were our thoughts and experiences?
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. So, like myself, I haven't necessarily been pulled aside for questioning through the colonial borders, like the customs or whatever. But first of all, when you travel outside of the so-called U.S. and you go to Cuba, there's a specific license that we travel under. So it's not like illegal. There's a specific license that you travel as an individual when you go there, and it's support for the Cuban people. You can look it up yourself as well. It's or you can put the link in there if they're willing to. But when they see that you have been to Cuba, it could go either way. They could pull you aside and ask you a ton of questions in secondary, or they can just be like, "Oh, okay, you were there under the license of support for the Cuban people. Bye." But there have been a lot of comrades, well, not I don't know if a lot is the proper term. There have been multiple comrades, I will say that have been pulled under secondary and have taken their phones by the colonial government here, um, their laptops, and then they don't get it back for like months. Um, so the key is to give them the least information as possible when you're with them. They try to intimidate you, just like they do here to us when when we supposedly run a red light, or we supposedly, are just following the law, really, the colonial law, but they want to stop us for racial discrimination because that's what they do. Um, but yeah, they basically, you just basically need to stay calm and give the least information as possible. That's really what it comes down to. And I'll yield there.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add is like, yeah, it is a legal and licensed trip. Like it's not illegal to travel to Cuba. They try to intimidate people away from it and make it as difficult as possible. So people think they are not allowed to go, but it's not. You can take an American Airlines flight to Havana tomorrow if you wanted to. So it's a completely legal and licensed trip. We use the support for the Cuban people license, like Belle said. And the other thing I'll say is that it's like certainly true, especially if you're like coming through Florida, baby, that you can get like additional scrutiny at TSA when you're coming back. They'll just be obnoxious basically. But again, it's like not a crime. Like no one's doing anything wrong. Like we have the right as US citizens to travel wherever we want to and freely associate. Like we decide who our friends are, point blank period. And so it's important to, practice that right. Like uphold our right to go where we want to go and to build relationships with who we want to build relationships with. But the other thing I want to say is that like this targeting of travelers is not just limited to Cuba anymore. In this like present historical moment, like they're going after people who thought that they had like a stable status, like green card hold people who already have their green cards, people who have like student visas, even folks who were born here are getting targeted in that kind of way. And so it's like really important for us to develop a practice of traveling safely, of understanding our rights at these like border crossings, and also moving in a way that does not put our communities at risk. And so I feel like going on these brigades and like learning how to do this together as a collective is like a really important form of direct action against imperialism, to say that you are not going to block the movements of peoples. And then the very last thing I'll say for real is that like Belle mentioned secondary search. It's basically like when you get to customs and you answer the questions and like we want to ask you more questions, like they take you to another room. That happens all the time, and it usually happens to like people who can't speak English. It happens to like colonized working class men and children and families. Like that's who'll be back there, and you'll have like TSA agents, DSS agents, like just grilling them, searching their stuff, intimidating them, lying to them, as the police tend to do. And so that's the other thing, like understanding that we are traveling to Cuba in solidarity with Cuba. We are not doing anything wrong. And although we are being targeted for that still, we are not like the primary targets of that repression. It is like the poor and working class colonized masses that are experiencing that every single day. So yeah, that was the other thing. Like I remember Comrade talking about getting pulled into secondary, and it was all Cuban men that could not speak English, and it was just TSA agents telling them that they couldn't like lying to them about what they couldn't bring into Cuba. Like they couldn't, like just lie and speaking in English. So it's just, yeah, that's the only thing I want to say.
Yeah,
It's
thank you for that.
It's not illegal to travel there. You're still allowed to do it. And also they try to scare people because they're jerks. And then question from the Mayday Brigade. Hey, comrades, the other, one of the other big delegations from the U.S. to Cuba is the Mayday Brigade, organized by the National Network on Cuba. I got to go for the first time this year. It was amazing. So comrade from the Mayday Brigade is asking any new health protocols for the VB this year with mosquito-borne viruses. And the answer is yes. So in the wake of, what is the hurricane that just, the last
Melissa.
one? Melissa. Hurricane Melissa, that was a extremely powerful Category 5 hurricane that directly hit the east side of Cuba. There was a lot of infrastructure damage, no deaths though, thanks to socialism, but also like a huge, after like Melissa, there was like a huge influx of proliferation in the population of mosquitoes. And because there were more mosquitoes, there was more spread of 2 mosquito-borne illnesses. Dengue, which was already in Cuba, but now is like much more widespread, like a lot more people are catching it. And then the other one, I might not say it right, I think it's chikungunya. It's an African word. Okay, cool. So these are 2, they're similar in terms of their symptoms. You get them when you get bitten by a mosquito. And if you catch it, you might get a fever, you might get headaches and body aches. Dengue has like some serious symptoms if you get like a more intense form of dengue, if you're immunocompromised, where you can like have like internal bleeding and like intense stuff. So scary situation where there's like a lot of people in Cuba who are contracting these mosquito-borne illnesses because they're getting bitten by mosquitoes, because like a lot more. And so on the December Brigade, what we are planning to do is just organize people around prevention and treating the symptoms if they get it. Because the issue is that there's no cure for either one. And there's like a test you can get to like identify which one it is. But because of the blockade, there's a shortage of the test. And so it's very likely that folks will get bitten, they'll get it, and we'll never know what it was. And so all we can do is treat the symptoms. So in terms of prevention, it's like, for me, it's like Africa rules. Like I've never traveled to any place in Africa without taking medication ahead of time and without taking or being really diligent about like mosquito repellent and like keeping the windows closed. And so that's what we're going to direct people to do. Make sure that you have a strong mosquito repellent, like 20% picaridin is what's been recommended to us by a doctor. So like lotions, sprays, lotions last a little bit longer than sprays, and asking people to bring their own and be diligent about reapplying them. The other thing we're going to ask people to do is wear like long sleeve shirts and long pants, because like the more exposed skin you have, the more area for mosquitoes to wreck your stuff. So we're going to ask folks to try to like cover. It's going to be difficult because it's going to be 80 degrees. I personally like a hoochie short. I like having my titties out. So it's going to be difficult for me. But I'm going to make an effort to wear long sleeves. The other big piece, and this is like hardcore Africa rules, is like don't open the window for a breeze, because these mosquitoes bite during the day. The breed of mosquito that's spreading this in Cuba bites people during the day. And so usually like if you keep the window closed at night, you're safe from mosquito bites. Not this time. And so we're going to ask folks to keep the windows closed, to depend on the air conditioning when it's available, and just make sure that we're not letting mosquitoes into shared spaces. And then if folks do get bit and develop those symptoms, like I said, we're going to be focused on treating the symptoms because there is no cure. And for the majority of people who catch dengue or chikungunya, it's going to be mild. Like it's going to be unpleasant, but it's going to be mild. You'll get the body aches, you'll get the headache, you'll get the fever. But if you rest and take acetaminophen, that can address the soreness, and then you just got to wait it out. If you are immunocompromised, there is a case where you might get a more severe infection with these mosquito-borne illnesses. And in that case, luckily, we're going to be in Cuba, which has one of the best healthcare systems in the entire world. I have been on a brigade where someone caught dengue, and that person got extremely high-quality medical care from our Cuban comrades. And so that is our plan B. But basically, we're going to focus on not getting bit, and if you do get bit and you get sick, treating the symptoms. Luckily, unlike COVID, the only way you can get these is if you get bitten by a mosquito. So we can't pass it to each other because and that's really, really great because there's no personal space on the brigade, baby. So hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? I see hashtag end the blockade on Cuba. India's in the chat and Instagram, just going up. Love you, India.
Yes, love you, comrade. Sip, sip. And viva Fidel, caramba, viva Fidel.
Viva Fidel and viva Maduro.
Viva Maduro. Viva Che. We can go on all night. What other questions are there?
India just said butt to butt. And I don't even know what you're talking about, girl. I think that we're coming to the end of our live because India's in the chat talking about butts. Why are you talking about butts in the chat, India? Okay. I see no other questions. If y'all have additional questions, just let us know. Otherwise, we can pass it back to Belle for the closing.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all again so much for being here, for joining our live and our report back and our fundraiser tonight. And for all of you who are already sending in some cash, appreciate y'all. Keep it coming. We appreciate it. So again, as Onye mentioned, and I'll be as brief as I possibly can, because Onye pretty much did a great job. I mean, she literally killed it, per usual. So as Onye mentioned, we really want to be able to continue our internationalist strategizing. We want to continue to support each other, and we need money for the African Indigenous Palestinian Brigade this December, literally in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Very exciting. Please, if you're able to, again, do not put Cuba or the Cuban flag on the memo line. Just put travel funds, or some of you put like a little heart or whatever. That works too. Just no Cuba flag, no Cuba mention in there. Please, because the gringos US will freeze your account and ours. So you don't want your account frozen, and we don't want ours frozen. So please don't do it. Again, we are thankful for y'all and allowing us to be here and joining us on a Friday night. Wham! Thank you. And we're wanting to continue to build a front line for liberation. So let's keep going, build a front line for liberation. So donate to those of us who are on the front line, African, Indigenous, Palestinian. Please do it. And if you're not able to bring cash, like Onye said, you can give us some material aid too. Even if you just buy a bottle of acetaminophen from Target or wherever you go, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. So just go wherever you can afford it. $5 acetaminophen. Take it to your local donation bin, whether in Gnarly Cuban. Shout out to them again. We appreciate y'all. Oh, and look out for the report back at Gnarly Cuban when we come back. So we're going to have some lit pictures, some lit information. Yeah, you can find out what we did on our brigade, on this African Indigenous and Palestinian brigade. But yeah, if you're willing to, go to the donation bin that is in Gnarly Cuban, or the donation site in so-called Tampa. It's up right now. Thank you, Onye, for that. And it's in our slides. And if you're not able to donate medicine, there's also like a stack of paper, school supplies, pencils. There's a stack there. There's a list there, not a stack. A list there. So please, and we appreciate you all. Again, thank you for being here. And you want to end with a chant, Onye? You want to end? Yo solo sé that our comrade Miladies taught you when you went to Puerto Rico. Solo sé.
I also want to play the Maduro video. My favorite song. The best song of 2025 thus far.
No remix. No more. No more.
Ready? Okay, we're going to play the song, and then we're going to put the fire up, and then we're going to end the live.
Wait, we got to do our chant.
Okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, ready?
The chant. So the chant goes, yo solo sé tres palabras en inglés, for those of you that don't know. Yankee, go home. Yankee, go home. Say it from wherever you are. Put it in the chat, India. This is your time. Put that in the chat. Put it all in the chat. Ready? Let's go.
Solo sé tres palabras en inglés.
Hey,
Yankee, go home.
Hey,
Yankee, go home.
One more time.
Yo solo sé tres palabras en inglés. Yankee, go home. Yankee, go home.
Hey.
And the context where we learned that, like Belle said, our Carmen Miladies, Puerto Rican coordinator with the Afro Puerto Rican coordinator with the Mayday Brigade, family medicine doctor in the Bronx, all around strong revolutionary, took me to Puerto Rico on a mini brigade. And we went to an independence march in San Juan, where like hundreds of Puerto Ricans were saying, U.S. out of Puerto Rico, decolonized Puerto Rico. And they marched through like the tourist district, Viejo San Juan, Old San Juan. And they were all up in people's grills chanting that chant, which means I only know 3 words in English. Yankee go home. It was one of my favorite memories of all time. And now it's like a vocal stem for us. Like we were in Mexico City chanting it.
That's why I was so excited, because we were chanting it on the streets of Mexico City, and literally everybody, like all the Mexicans around us, were like, "Yay!" Like this is smiling from ear to ear, and we just kept chanting it in the middle of the street, like "Yo, son, as we walked to Trowski's house, as we walked to the like coffee shop, as we walked to get food, like as we walked pretty much everywhere. But yeah, anyways.
Cool. All right. Thank you all. We're going to close out with the best song of 2025 thus far. And please drop off your donations for material aid Friday to Saturday at Gnarly Cuban, or Saturday and Sunday at Gnarly Cuban, all week at the Waters Avenue Church. And we will see you soon. Have a good night.
Night.
War. Yes, peace. Forever, forever, forever. Decirle al pueblo de Estados Unidos, no a la guerra. No queremos una guerra en el Caribe ni en Sudamérica. No. Not war. Yes, peace. No a la guerra loca. No crazy war. No. 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 ¿Cómo se dice en inglés? Please, please, please. Yes, peace. Listen to me. Yes, peace. Peace forever. Peace forever. Peace forever. Esto se llama lenguaje tarzaneado.